On this occasion, our CEO is from the aviation sector, a person with over 20 years experience with commercial airlines, John Brayford, CEO of RAK Airways. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Phil. Yep.
Let's start off, set the scene regarding your involvement with the commercial airline industry.
Oh, right. I started off over 20 years ago with British Airways. Did a little bit of time in the UK and then went overseas and did 10 years in Africa. Went back to the UK, joined what was then Jersey European Airways, and was there with them as they migrated into or reformed into Flybe. Okay. And then in 2004 I joined Qatar and ostensibly to set up their Africa operations. So spent a year in Doha setting up a few of the routes, moved into Kenya. Okay. And did another 3 years or so in Kenya.
We're going to focus on RAK, but I mean, your experience in Africa must have been quite challenging and quite an experience.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's great. It's a great part of the world to do business. Emerging markets are very important. Culturally, there's a huge diversity between the north, south, east and west, of course. Yeah.
So with that experience behind you, from Europe through to Africa, what do you feel you're bringing to RAK Airways?
Well, I think for me, working in the small teams that I've worked in and the business units overseas, in many respects is very similar to a startup carrier, which RAK Airways still is in effect, with a small team, no more than 200 people. And I think leveraging the best, getting people to be as good as they can be, is, for me, is the selling point for the airline, to get the best out of the people. We can't compete in the investment terms with some of the big carriers. We just don't have the funds to produce flatbeds and a vast array of IFE. So to me, it's the people, it's the service that's really important.
Well, looking at the involvement of Ras Al Khaimah as a tourist destination, some major projects being announced and coming on stream, the airline, I suppose, will have to move with that. But before we look at your development, at this point in time, almost the middle of 2012, what is the size of your fleet and your current destinations?
Okay, well, we've got 2 aircraft that we lease and operate for ourselves on a dry lease basis, and we operate to 9 destinations around the Indian subcontinent, around the periphery, as far west as Cairo.
So your guests, your customers flying with RAK Airways to these destinations you're talking about, what sort of mix are you having at the moment?
Well, I think from the traditional markets in the Indian subcontinent, there's still a lot of labour movement. And that's really important for the economic development of the region, and it always has been, of course. So one shouldn't be ashamed of saying there's a large amount of labour movement. But increasingly, as these countries prosper as well, people are looking for leisure destinations themselves. Family travel and family movement is a lot more significant now through the Middle East than it used to be. And of course, Ras Al Khaimah, as it's developing now as an inbound tourism destination, we're getting a lot of interest from places like Jeddah and Doha and Cairo for short breaks and leisure breaks with families here, which is very exciting.
Well, as you say, the aviation sector is very important to the growth of any country, any emirate, like here in Dubai. Figures of the GDP from the aviation, the commercial airline sector, is something like 22 or 25% growing as well. So what are the development plans for RAK Airways as the emirate itself grows in terms of tourism?
Right, well, the Ras Al Khaimah's tourism plans are extremely ambitious, and I think as you probably know, there are some significant plans for developments beyond tourism as well. It's got an industrial heritage here as well, having developed businesses which support the development of growth in other parts of the UAE. So obviously we'll be keen to support that as the emirate develops, but I think also where the opportunities arise and where it makes sense economically, we will also be looking at supporting the tourism sector directly with flights into Europe and Russia and the CIS states.
And you take one of the recent announcements, the Real Madrid resort island, which will be attracting vast numbers of people. Things have to grow considerably quickly.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And the thing is that not a lot of people realise from outside the region how football is just the sport for this whole region. And when you flick through the channels, the sports channels, it's football, football, football. And so I can see a huge number of visitors from the affluent parts of the GCC and the Middle East coming here for weekend breaks, leisure breaks, because the whole development will have beautiful hotels and attractions other than just Real Madrid.
So regarding the development of RAK Airways, if you had a wish list, what would you like to be achieving over the next 5 years?
Well, I think I'd wish for some stability in the marketplace so that small carriers like ourselves have a fighting chance. I mean, the hike in fuel price so far this year, although it's stabilised now, I think that, has been particularly hurtful to small airlines like ourselves. So if I was to wish for anything, it really would be some stability in the cost sense so that we can actually continue to develop our business. We've got a 5-year plan which is all signed off, which is very much in support of the Emirates development, with an A320 fleet growing to 10 aircraft by 2016. And this is what we want to achieve.
Within 4 years. That is pretty fast expansion.
Yeah, so we'll be adding basically one A320 per season as we move through to the beginning of 2016.
Okay, and when can we expect an announcement of new destinations from RAK Airways coming out into the media and the public?
Okay, well, we change our reservation system to Seater Horizon next month.
Yeah.
And that will enable us, as you're probably aware, to communicate not just with the wider travel trade through the global distribution system, but also enables us to communicate with other carriers.
Sure.
And so we've lined up one very, very significant announcement, which we hope, once it's signed up, will make the press at the beginning of June.
John, thanks very much for talking to us. And to finish off, how do you position RAK Airways? Is it a low-cost carrier, a premium carrier, or in between?
Well, definitely in between. It's an undefined ground in between.
Yes.
I mean, I'd rather than describe us as, let's say, Fly Dubai or Air Arabia Plus, I'd rather describe us as maybe Emirates Light, that sort of thing.
So, John, thanks very much for joining us here on AIM Info.
Thank you.
Thank you.